He'll drive on Hoopman, no contact. Faulkner gets the rebound, and he'll heave one up from three quarters, and it goes in! Trayvon Faulkner hurls one from three-quarter court, and it's nothing but net.
And we are back at it again. This is the fourth iteration of Last Call. Technically only like the second or third iteration of Last Call because it took us a little while to come up with a name. But we finally did. And also we have to acknowledge that this is only the third iteration of Last Call for Larry. We really missed you last week, Larry. The episode was a lot shorter, but it's also because I cut about half of what I had to say out of the episode. So I kind of just want to get right into it. Like, I don't want to waste any time. I'm loving the fact that we just swept again. And, you know, I went outside today and I looked up in the sky and I didn't see any meteors or anything coming down. All I saw was snow. The sky is not falling, guys. It's not.
No, I agree. You know, as I posted on Norse Nation last night, it's a great day to be a Norse men's basketball fan. Let's be honest, 4 straight wins. You know, a sweep of UIC, who coming into this year, we thought was going to be right there towards the top, you know, if not at the top. And, you know, I was really impressed going in to tonight's show with just the energy level on both ends of the floor, both offensively and defensively. I thought, you know, contrary to what we had seen maybe a few weeks ago, we got out early. We set the tone early. And fortunately, that carried over to 2 pretty close wins, but nonetheless, they were wins. And hopefully, you know, a sign of things to come here moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I want to start off, though, with this is probably the easiest part of the show. Mike, what's the best thing that you saw this weekend?
Best thing, I think what I just mentioned was just the energy from the opening tip to the final horn. I think we saw a different team, to be quite honest, than what we've seen going back 3-4 weeks ago. We were able to jump on UIC early, kept the pedal down for most of the time. But hopefully that's a sign of the maturation of this team and just getting used to playing with each other. And, having the practices and the regular games allow them to work better together. So that's the main takeaway that I had from this weekend.
Yeah. And Larry, how about you?
I think there are almost too many things to count as far as things that I take away as positives from the last 2 weekends. A few things I really enjoyed seeing is, we don't really know what we had in Robert Morris before they joined the Horizon League. We knew that they've got a history of not being awful, but they came in as a relative unknown. I think the talent up and down the roster was a little better than their record shows. They played us tight, but we were able to put them out. UIC, like Michael said, we were expecting them to come in and be a top 3 team, and they showed why they're a top 3 team. They gave us fits up and down the games, both games. But even though, the big thing with me, even though we had a lot of defensive lapses late in all 4 of those games that we won, we still managed to put the games away. We struggled at times, but we never let it slip away. Whether it was Trevon Faulkner stepping up and hitting 10 out of 10 free throws late in the game, or Bryson Langdon taking the ball himself and taking a final shot, which I think one of us called that. I can't remember who it was that said Bryson was going to take the ball.
It was Mike. I was actually double wrong on that, Larry. If you remember, I said it'll probably be Warwick, and I swear to God, if we go ISO, I'm going to freak out. And lo and behold, Bryson Langdon takes him off ISO and hits it.
Yeah, seeing our point guard have the confidence to take over the role of a primary scorer with 3 seconds left in the game, that's exciting to me. I mean, all the other things that he does well, knowing that the ball's in his hands at the end of the game, now we know what how he feels about that. Another thing is seeing what happens when Trevon is out of the game for long periods of time. He had some cramping issues up and down the line through the last 3 or 4 games, missed minutes here and there, and we saw that Marquez Warwick has the ability to not just do what he does when Trevon's on the court, but he showed that he can take over the role of the primary, ball handler or ball scorer rather, and take over the game for us when Trevon would have been doing that. So I think we learned a lot of things in the last 4 games, a lot of things that we might have been thinking about in the back of our minds, but things that were just proven to us, in real time. And I'm really, really excited about that.
Hey, Larry, just to piggyback on what you just said, I think with Marquez, as you mentioned, when Trevon went out, it wasn't just a matter of him being probably the go-to man on there, but you could see in that game, he wanted to be that person. He was calling for the ball. He was going to the ball. And so that was very encouraging. It showed a lot of maturation on his end in this really young freshman season of his. And then to piggyback on Langdon, 13 points Friday night, 12 last night, and a huge game winner right there in the lane. You can't ask for anything more. And again, if this is a small little breakout for him for these last couple games going into the tournament, I will greatly take that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And just to kind of to finish out what I was thinking in the back of my head, being able to finish out those 4 games without losing grips on any of the 4 was huge, but how we won was different. It seemed like we took a new approach, a new offensive philosophy. Instead of looking to shoot the 3 right down the court, I saw a lot of slashing, a lot of driving by guards and forwards that normally may have been stepping out to the perimeter a little bit. We saw a lot of driving. I couldn't count how many times Langdon went straight into the paint, all 5'9" of them, and just completely willing to take on any bodies that came up against him. And he kept getting to the line and put their guys in foul trouble, gave us some more points. And I feel like we learned how to adjust. And when we did that, all 4 games, you could physically see the adjustment that we made in our game plan. And to come out 4 games, 4 wins against where we could have easily split this 2-2, very easy. We come out with 4 wins. Now all of a sudden we're a winning team in the top 3 in the conference. I think Coach Horn is doing a great job of learning how to integrate pieces that might have been relative unknowns early on. But I think he's doing a great job of finding different combinations of players on the court at the same time and get the most out of all of them, synergistically, so to speak.
I will say that I do owe this guy a little bit of love, I think, over the last couple of weeks. Trevon Faulkner, man, that dude is a tank. At least he was this weekend and has been the last couple of weeks. He, by the way, I don't know if you guys were aware of this. I did post it on the page, so I'm sure you saw. The guy had his first career double-double this weekend, 25 and 12, shot a total of 78% from the free throw line over both games, right? the more efficient he is when he's making passes rather than forcing threes that aren't wide open. When he's shooting shots that he should make, when he's shooting good shots where he's one of the best high post ISO players pound for pound in the league. He is incredible from that mid-range post area. And I think the players are really playing off of him. And the cool thing is he's finally realizing, like, I don't have to do this alone. And you saw it, I think it was Mike last week, one of the Robert Morris games, he had 5 assists. And that's not ever really been a Trayvon Faulkner stat. So.
Well, you look at Faulkner, and when I kind of to double back on my point about how we learned to adjust and play differently, Faulkner scored in the series against Robert Morris, scored 18 and 18. And then this weekend against UIC, so he scores 36 last week, 40 this weekend. And then you look at his stats, and I kind of wrote it down earlier today because it really stuck out. The 2 wins against UIC, which again I think are huge, bigger than the Robert Morris wins, obviously, for conference standing's sake. He took 6 3-point shots in the series. Think about that for a second. 6 threes the entire series, and ended up scoring more points than he was on average prior to that. So you see him getting to the basket a lot, and he's a 73-77% free throw shooter. He's going to get his points, and I think we're seeing what he can do now, and I'm really hoping we see that carry forward.
Yeah, I completely agree, Larry. He's an absolute beast from the mid-range. And I mean, one thing I do disagree with what was said on the broadcast is that he's not a good 3-point shooter. The guy shot 37% from 3 as a freshman. So but you got to think of who he was with on those teams, right? He was only getting wide open shots from 3. He's always been a good set catch and shooter. But the problem with Trayvon, and we're not seeing it really that much the last 4 weeks, specifically this weekend, to your point you just made, Larry, is he's only shooting the shots that are right there. Wide open, shot clock winding down. He's making a concerted effort to realize, like, hey, maybe I need to James Harden step back every time, although he did do it once this weekend and it worked pretty well. But not every single time, and not with someone hanging off my elbow or whatever. So now with that, unfortunately, the team still is 7-5. We're still very, very young. So let's just put that in perspective when we head into this segment, because I don't want it to sound like we're beating up on a team that is at this point still a second semester freshman. As a collective unit, there are definitely areas of improvement that the team can focus on. I know on the pre-call, we kind of all talked about certain things that we wanted to cover. So I'd love to start with Larry on this one. Larry, what do you think if you were Coach Horn? Like, what's your point of emphasis this week for the team to improve?
I think with going along the theme of getting to the basket, we need to be more consistent with our free throws. I know we've had a couple games in the last 4 where free throws really helped carry us to the end, but against UIC this weekend, we were 10 of 15 or 10 of 17, which is good for, I think, 59%. That's not going to get it done in a game where we were down by 2 with a couple minutes left in the game and darn near went to overtime. We could have really used those free throws. So we've got to make the most of our opportunities when we get to the line, because we are making a more concerted effort to get to the line. Once we get there, we've really got to turn those into points, because we're not a great free throw shooting team. We shoot at a 6% clip, but top 3 guys on the team in free throw percentage, we've got Trevon, Warwick, and Bryson, all who shoot above 73%. So those are three guards that are making a really strong effort to get to the rim right now. Maybe not so much early in the season. They were shooting a lot from the outside early on, but one of those 3 guys, being Warwick, is really holding his own when it comes to getting comfortable with the free throw line, because as a freshman, all those things get in your head when you get up the line. Of course, there's no crowd noise now, so that's a big factor that I think is off the table. But 2 of our 3 free throw shooters are guys you would expect to be there. But that makes perfect sense with the freshmen kind of botching them a little bit at the end. Pressure, a little bit of sea legs, maybe not having off season of real conditioning, and it's hard to get your legs underneath you when you're trying to put a free throw up after when you're 36 minutes deep into the game. So and then the other thought too is rebounding. I know it kind of sounds surprising, because we've got one of the best rebounders in the country. And Adrian Nelson's going to put up consistent 7-8 points a game, 8 to 10 rebounds a game. But one thing that I noticed, a lot of possessions, I know we were all screaming at this the last weekend, we gave up a lot of second, third, fourth chance shots. Now, we've got to be able to grab those defensive rebounds. We can't give a team that many options, that many opportunities to more points that late in the game. And to that point, we're now seeing Noah Hoopman getting a lot of minutes. And I think you're going to see that as being a factor over the last 4 games. You know, he's getting 15 minutes a game now. The last 4 games, averaging 15 minutes. Before the Robert Morris series, 4 minutes was his most, the most playing time he played in a game. And that was, you know, that was a big game for him, the 4 minutes. Everything else, 1, 2 minutes, 0 minutes. So all of a sudden we've got a big rebounding presence in there, and lost since he's been, you know, more of a factor in the lineup. So maybe a coincidence, but I really don't think it is. He's altering a lot of shots and making it really hard for teams to get good looks. So.
Sure. Mine may come across as nitpicking because obviously we had 2 wins, 4 within the last 2 weekends, but I'd like to see maybe more of a killer instinct on defense. I think, you know, there were many instances this weekend where we got up double digits and one way or another allowed UIC back in the game. And a lot of it had to do with misassignments on the defensive end, to piggyback on Larry's point, second chance rebounds. You know, there were a couple, especially in the Saturday night game, where I think one possession, I think they may have gotten 4 or 5 offensive rebounds where we were not anywhere close to gaining those rebounds. And while obviously it didn't end up in a loss, you know, against stiffer competition, those are going to come back to haunt us. And so I would like to see when we get up by a good margin, having that killer instinct where we can just kind of put the foot on the throat and really close it out and not, you know, come down to these nail biters where we're, you know, wondering it's one possession here, one possession there.
Yeah, for sure. I actually kind of did have, I guess it kind of works out perfectly. My big takeaway, I think, is it works together with both of y'all's. It is just kind of defense as a whole. Darren Horton's defense, as we've mentioned before on this show a bunch of times, it's so reliant on good, strong guard play up top, forcing pressure on the ball, getting into passing lanes. And the reason they're able to do that when they do it well is because they have a strong backline defense. What is helpful, though, Larry just alluded to, is if we can get anything positive out of Noah Hoopman the rest of the year, maybe we get him in there against Wright State. Maybe he's able to be a little bit, again, no expectations. I'm not expecting a walk-on freshman to go in and shut down the reigning player of the year. But there's 2 ways to beat a tank, right? When they have the ball in their hands. You can be a wall and hold your ground, or you can be a tree and be taller than them and impact some of their shots. And that's what, like, we were all hoping to see Chris Vogt do for us last year. No one expected him to hold his ground and stop Loudon Love from backing him down. But we said, you know what, at least he's 7 foot with a 7'5" wingspan and can probably block some of those shots. So if we can get something like that out of Noah Hoopman, you know, maybe that's helpful down the stretch. Again, no expectations of it, but that would be nice. Yeah, that's really it for me.
Kyle, not to
go
interrupt you, but to just kind of add another point to the defensive thing. And while I agree on each and every one of those points, I think one thing that we need to all keep in mind, and I think it's different when you see a regular set lineup on the defensive end where your defensive effort and what comes out of that effort is a little more consistent, as opposed to if you are constantly running people in and out. And I'm not saying that's an excuse. I'm not saying that's maybe what happened to us, but I mean, we have pretty much a rotating door in terms of substitutions, what we've seen the last couple of weekends. And so there's a lot of different mixes in there in terms of lineups. And I think we can all admit there's some that make us a lot shaky, to where we're just like, God, get us to the next TV timeout or the next dead ball to where we can kind of get back. But I think maybe that might have something to do with it as I'm listening to us talk through some things. You know, again, you got guys playing with different guys, you know, and so again, not an excuse, but something that we definitely need to firm up to where when we get to the likes of a Wright State, that we've got everybody clicking, you know, on the same page.
Well, guys, you know, I think we have a lot to look forward to next week. But you know what? Before we close the book on this week, I do think it's very important for us to extend a welcome back to the women's team playing their first conference games. And I believe I saw 6 weeks, right, for conference. I know it was 28 days for regular game. I'm pretty sure they didn't play a conference game since early or mid-December, right?
It was the Louisville game.
Was
the
the
last game was the last game. Yep.
Right. And then I believe before that they had a few conference games before that put them, I think I'm pulling it right now. Purdue Fort Wayne was December 20th. So they go from December 20th to January, what would that be, 29th, without playing a conference game at all. John Parker from Horizon Roundtable has been writing women's basketball power rankings this year. He's been leaving NKU out of the power rankings, justifiably so. How can you rank a team that you haven't seen? I mean, I get it. And what's the best part about it is he's a big Milwaukee guy, and was talking all that smack, said maybe NKU should play Milwaukee and then we'll see what happens. And then we go in there and whoop some ass. So I don't know if you guys saw those games because they were playing simultaneously with the men's, or if you were able to go back and look at least the box score or check out any of the highlights. Mike, I know you were pretty active on the chats for both games. Did you happen to watch any of that women's game?
I was flipping back and forth. I think that was a huge statement weekend for our Lady Norse, especially coming off close to 35, 40 days of non-action, and to go into the home court of the conference leading and conference undefeated Milwaukee team. And let's be honest, first game, 17-point win. Last night, again, we're in double digits again. I mean, that's a statement. And, I think these young ladies are for real. We saw it towards the end of last year. Garcia, Duval, and Turner this past weekend were just nails. And I think they caused the rest of the conference to kind of stand up and take notice that, they're the real deal. And so I was very impressed. I'm excited. I'm happy for them. This is the kind of monumental win I think that they needed for the program to show that they can compete with the elite of the conference. And I'm only hoping for more big things ahead for that group.
Yeah. How about you, Larry? Did you happen to catch any of it or see the stats or anything?
I didn't. I just kind of browsed through the stats and was pretty impressed that they held on. I know things got kind of tenuous, especially in the second game. I know we absolutely lit them up the first game, but and I know that the second game was a little dicier toward the end. I know, I would look back at the score and see they're up by 12, then they're up by 8, then they're up by 4, but then they extended that lead back out and ended up winning by 7. But I'm just really impressed with that Milwaukee team, despite the fact that we cleaned their clocks twice in a row. They played a decent little non-conference schedule and breezed through that pretty well too. I know they had a little hiccup at Bowling Green, a game they should have pulled out, but otherwise, I mean, they're one shot against Bowling Green and running into the NKU ladies machine away from being perfect right now.
So I think we all know, you guys remember I covered this team very closely last year, went to all their games, they became my passion project because I really believed in this team. And I've kind of, obviously COVID being a big reason why, but I've kind of fallen a little bit away from this team this year until recently. Another reason why being they haven't played for 4 weeks, but to Larry's point, that seeing that dwindling lead, it used to be a running joke for this team. There were about 3 or 4 games last year where they had a 9-point lead in the third quarter. At the end of the third quarter, going into the fourth. One of them was Wright State, notoriously went 1 for 24 in the fourth quarter or something. It was, in fact, and Coach Cam even made a joke because they turned around the next weekend and they had Oakland at a 9-point lead at the end of the third quarter. And they ended up holding off and winning that game. And Coach Cam made a joke at the coaches show that next following week saying, I looked up at the end of the third quarter, saw a 9-point lead, and I was like, oh my God, here we go again. And so that's another kind of growth. Like we always talk about, this isn't, the sports aren't game to game necessarily. They're also season to season. And these teams, there's an exposition or there's a story being told. And for this team, it's certainly always been a story of growth. And another really quick tidbit of information, I think it's fun. And this is from a program perspective, men's and women's. The first sweep of last season, the first weekend sweep, we'd call it, right? Where the men go 2-0 and the women go 2-0 in the same weekend was at the same time last year, the last weekend of January. And that's cool and everything, but this was the first opportunity this year for that to even happen. And it did. It was the first time the men and women played 4 conference games combined in the same weekend. And so I got to look and I was like, oh, that's really funny. It happened last year at the same time too. So I went back and looked at the 2018-19 season. We did the same thing that season too. We went 2-0 in the last weekend in January / first weekend of February. So this team, I think as a whole this program as a whole is 12-0 the last 3 seasons in that last weekend in January. So If you need some quick money next year, hedge your bets on these teams to win in the last weekend of January. And then one other really quick thing, a shout out to Carissa Garcia, man. 20 points Friday night seemed great, insurmountable. Then she just goes and adds on a career high 22 the next night. So, with that, guys, I do just want to give a quick, I guess, nod to our matchup this weekend for the men's team. We play Milwaukee, 2 games on, I think it's on the road, right? They're on the road.
Yep.
Okay. 2 games on the road. Looks like the tips are currently set for 6 p.m. on Friday night and 3 p.m. on Saturday afternoon, evening. I would check back, fans, nkunorse.com. I would definitely check back 2-3 days before the game, maybe even the day of the game. It seems like they've been a little bit fluid on some of these times, specifically for whatever reason with the Central Time games. I don't know why, but they've been moving those Milwaukee Central Time games around a decent amount. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with it, but just make sure you double check on that. Also, keep an eye out. We're going to have another video coming out later in the week. I'll be interviewing John Parker, who I mentioned before in this broadcast, of the Horizon Roundtable on what to expect from Milwaukee. That's it for me, guys. I hope everyone has a great week, and it's relaxing, and you clear your schedule for the weekend, and we can watch the Norse together. And hopefully we're doing this again next Sunday with smiles on our face.
Heck yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you joining again.